And we are live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, sexiest members to ever be members of a sexy group. Welcome. I am your sexy host, Bitcoin Pen, ex-truck driver. Now, my friends, today is going to be a long show. Those of you watching on Patreon are our private servers. Those of you watching on our private servers, which means Patreon, Founders Group, and SUBSTACK, those three. We're going to have about a 3-hour show today. I usually do 2, but today it'll be 3. And I'll tell you why. The first half hour, we're going to talk about Bitcoin mining. Now, what I've heard is part of the Inflation Reduction Act is to create microprocessors. Now, part of that is allocated for the U.S. production of chips and processing units specifically for mining the Bitcoin. Let me say that again. America is going to be producing technology strictly for mining Bitcoin. Now, what that shows me is anyone who thinks that the Bitcoin just a fad, just, it's like zippers and, I don't know, oxygen. It's a fad. My friends, there are high-powered corporations involved in this. What's up, Paulie P? My boy, Paulie P in the house. Hey, next time I see you, Paulie, drinks are on me, brother. Now, this fact that the federal government is printing money to produce facilities that will produce mining equipment for Bitcoin shows you where this is all going. Now, holy crap, guys. I'm going to say something. I want every single one of you to remember this moment. Where's Rick? Rick, where you at, brother? My historian, Rick Casca. Rick, we're going to want a dog ear this episode. Whew. Okay. The language used to me in a call was, I'm trying, I'm trying to remember the exact quote. It was something to the effect of this. The real underlying importance of the Bitcoin is this, that it's interchangeable between outer space and interspace. Okay, this is a little woo-woo, but I'm going to have to explain it to explain it. We live in a hologram, right? That hologram phases in and out. Now, we don't see the phase. Sometimes you do. It's what we call it's what we call poltergeist. It's what we call a ghost, right? Imagine this. Imagine that you have a dial on your chest, right? And that if you turn it to the left, your frequency changes. And if you turn it to the right, your frequency changes. If you took that dial and you turned it enough, you would disappear. But as you disappeared, you would appear in the same place, but in a different hologram. You get what I'm saying? Right. Think of quantum leap, except in the same place, in like on very hard to explain. Right. Time is layered in frequency. We all exist in what is known as the everlasting now, the ever existent now. The difference is our frequency. Right? If you change the human frequency band, then your consciousness would exist in a different hologram. Okay, now, the Bitcoin, because I know this sounds crazy, the Bitcoin, because it is pure energy, is able to be moved, transacted throughout these levels. Yes, it is woo-woo. once you take value and you put it into a frequency, once you monetize frequency, then you can transact that frequency over all frequencies. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Now, this is linked with what we're going to talk about in the second hour on the private server. Once you watch the second and third hour of this show, you'll understand what I mean. All right. Now, on yesterday's private server show, I explained how the East India Trading Company evolved into the creation of nations, that the company closed and relaunched as a nation that we call Great Britain or England, after the corporation had purchased the Bank of England. So the East Indian Trade Company purchased the Bank of England. This is the Rothschilds, right? Once they purchased the bank, which owned all of the land, they closed the company and moved the board of directors from the company into governmental structures, national government structures. So they made a president, they made a treasury department, they called it a nation. Right? The reason they called it a nation was so they could encapsulate the idea of nationalities to the general public. So that the general public, because it was all cultural, right? The East Indian Trade Company was franchising itself into cultural areas. And each cultural area was a new nation, nationality. So for India, they created the Indian government to handle the nationality, the culture of India. And that's why Great Britain eventually relinquished India, right? When they freed India, they didn't free India. They finished nationalizing India and creating the governmental structure of India. So they left. They put all their leaders in and they left. They put all of their corporate structure, president, vice president, treasurer, human resources, all that. So that's what I explained yesterday. Now, the importance is this, that the East India Trade Company went from a company to a nation, a government. They moved from a brand of a corporation into a brand of government. It was the same people. The board of directors at the East Indian Trade Company closed the East India Trade Company and just took over as the governing body of England. They appointed all of the royalty, all of the sovereigns. Yes, please take a second, hit like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. So, all right, now that nation then went out and nationalized all the other countries involved, or put in a national structure into all of the other cultural areas. And that's why we now have Iran, Iraq, all of these smaller countries, because originally they were Persia. Well, they took Persia and they broke it up into cultural areas, and they overlapped the cultural areas so there would be internal conflict of cultures. So they could use that internal conflict of cultures to create cultural war. They did this a lot with the Muslims. All right. Now, you have to remember, they had a 400-year plan for this. This was not like, hey, we'll have this wrapped up in a week. No, this was a long-term plan. So eventually, they got the whole world, or they thought they did. That's where we're at now. They're trying to button it all up. They're trying to bring it all together. This is the closing act of the government structure that they've been creating since then, globally. The problem is they have an issue. The issue is being exposed. And what is their weakness? What's going to expose them is their biggest lie. Their biggest lie is that humans evolved. That's the biggest lie. And their lie is being exposed by what we would call UFO exposure. And that's what the last 2 hours I'm going to explain. Right? UFOs are or non-human creatures are real. But there are different types there are different levels of what we're talking about. We have aliens that exist on this frequency plane, this hologram. We have aliens. But we also have different planes. We have different holograms on, like, think of it like this. Think of it like, like up and down on a radio, on an old radio, right? Where you turn the dial and that would slide back and forth, right? Think of reality like this. As we exist on this plane, if you change the dial, you go back and forth. What you're doing is you're changing what plane we're on. It's the same radio, but it's playing a different frequency. Right? Your consciousness is the radio. You can alter your consciousness. Oh, yeah. All right. Hey, Ben, this is way out there. Like I said, you're going to want to dog ear this episode and rewatch it in about 15 years. And you'll be like, I'll be damned. He was right. As you alter your frequency of your consciousness, you go in and out of these radio stations that all exist at the same time, right? Right now, if, let's say, this hologram is 107.7, And we're living in this hologram. Oh, 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 oh. But then you change your frequency to 107.0. That's when the body in this hologram dies, goes away. But your consciousness is shifted to the next hologram. And that's what happens when you die. You go from one hologram to the next. Now, this is why, and I'll bring this back to Bitcoin, right? And this is going to blow a lot of people's fucking brains, but that's okay. That's why I do the show. The Bitcoin is transferable over frequency. So you can, this is going to sound really fucking weird, but in 15 years, it'll make sense. You can move your Bitcoin to your next point of consciousness awakening. Do you, or not awakening, let's say focusing. Right? When you die, what's happening is you're losing the focus of your point of consciousness. You're moving off of 107.7 and you're moving towards 107.0. So your consciousness is changing frequency. And that's when you're dying, right? And as you pass a certain point in the other frequency, you're being born. You're being created. You're going from a solid or a point of consciousness that is tuned perfectly. As you die, your tuning changes. You're losing your point of tuning. So as you move on the dial, the music playing on 107.7 gets weaker, and you start to hear the next channel under it. That's the dying process. That's why people who are dying, they start to see old relatives, or they start to hear old relatives, because they're half in this frequency and half in the next frequency. Right? And I know this sounds crazy, but understand you're going to be able to take your Bitcoin with you. I know it sounds weird, but like I said, dog-ear this video and watch it in 15 years. And it'll all make sense. Okay. Word from the sponsor.
Are you buying and selling cryptos on the same laptop that you're using to browse the internet, read your email, and visit social media sites? If so, you're exposing your cryptos to theft. Whenever you're online, you're at risk of getting hacked and having your identity stolen. How would you feel if someone stole all of your cryptos? What would that do to your finances? Guard your cryptos with a safe and secure laptop from CALIX Solutions. Each laptop is set up just for you and your cryptos, and then we walk you through exactly how it works. Don't risk the security of your cryptos. Order a crypto laptop from CALIX Solutions now to secure your crypto future. Learn more at calixsolutions.io.
All right. Everyone. Everyone watching on YouTube right now, switch over to Rumble. I'll do the next half hour on Rumble. But then we go to the private server on Patreon and Substack. If you want my whole shows every day, they're usually about 2 hours, and they're extremely entertaining. Go to Substack or Patreon. You get everything there, all right? Bye-bye, YouTube.